All right. So what we are going to do is let's have this conversation of what's going on with blockchain, crypto, and the whole space from three amazing individuals that are going to sit down with us. Let's just grab seats, everyone, and I'm going to have you all introduce yourself. So what I'm first going to do is, Judy, Eric, and Ben. You guys have your mic? Do me a favor, Ben. Could you introduce yourself? Just sit down.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm Ben Golub. I am currently on my seventh startup. Seventh startup. Fourth is as CEO. But I've, like a lot of us were talking backstage, have gone through a lot of the different major changes that there have been in tech over the years, whether it's client-server or Internet Web 1.0 or distributed computing. I was early at VeriSign when we needed to secure the internet. Was CEO of Gluster, which was distributed storage. Just recently ended being CEO of Docker, which sort of unleashed the container and the sort of approach towards microservices and distributed computing. And now I'm exec chair, interim CEO of Storj, which is, depending on who I'm talking to, either sort of a decentralized AWS or Airbnb for disk drives.
And also, does everybody remember Plaxo? Maybe you don't remember that. It was a content management system, a contact management system, actually probably one of the first and one of the best ever, and that was acquired by Comcast.
Yeah.
And you were also there, so
right.
you've seen.
And I competed against Eric at some point, so.
We'll talk about it in a lot of ways, you're right.
Yeah.
Judy, tell us about you.
Sure. I was a trader before, but now I'm a managing director in DHVC. And why I was convinced about Bitcoin, because I was a trader, and I always complained by our backend office, and I was always complaining backend office. And when I read the white paper of Bitcoin, I think I can cut off all of the backend office. So that's why I was convinced about Bitcoin. And I was in DHVC for 3 years. And since like 3 years ago, I started the crypto investment area. Yeah.
Got it. And Eric, tell us about you.
Yes, so I would be one of those, what you would call the serial entrepreneurs. So I started back in the late 90s, with my first startup during the .com times. Really haven't been in startups focused on communication and collaboration types of businesses. Before I started the latest blockchain project, I was one of the co-founders behind LinkedIn, and definitely knew about Plaxo and Ben. And so currently we have a project called Hub. And again, depending on who you're talking to, we're either a decentralized trust network or a decentralized LinkedIn. So talk more about that later.
So we have a clock in front of us showing we have 3 minutes left in this panel. You guys going to be able to wrap that up real quick? So we have a good half hour to share with you. Maybe extend it to your Q&A later on. You have an amazing dynamic group that's sitting in front of us. Let's first talk about and make sure we make a clear delineation, and maybe you could help us out with this, Ben. When we say blockchain and when we say crypto, I want to make sure people understand there's a difference there, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that blockchain is all about cryptocurrency, or even that decentralization is all about blockchain, and that's really not the case. So, cryptocurrencies are certainly one of the sort of most powerful and well-known use cases of blockchain, but blockchain as a technology, distributed ledger, is used in a whole variety of different use cases where you want to have transactions without necessarily relying on a central authority. And decentralized applications don't all use blockchain. So decentralized applications are really any application built where, again, you're not relying on a central or a single individual or organization to provide trust or security or be a central point of failure.
In some ways, what you did at VeriSign, you verified the legitimacy of a website. You said, yes, this is real, this is accurate, this is somebody you can trust. Mm-hmm. I know we're not talking about, it wasn't decentralized, it was very centralized back then. But where blockchain is going today, it's got some attributes of what VeriSign was.
Yeah, I mean, so again, if you think about what the internet looked like back in the dark days, dark ages, 20 years ago or whatever, when we were much younger than we are now, you had this challenge of how do you have lots of people who are anonymous, trying to transact with each other in a way that is secure. And so what, VeriSign, among other things, VeriSign let you know that this server that you're interacting with is pets.com or Amazon as opposed to somebody else. And similarly, that they had some sense of who you were, and then the transaction was encrypted. Now, we did that as a sort of central authority. What blockchain and other things allow you to do now is allow you to do sort of similar things, where you can have transactions happen between people who are highly distributed, who are unknown, and yet not rely on some central authority to make it secure.
Now, Judy, you coming from the finance side, you got really excited about Bitcoin specifically initially, correct? Is that what drove you into the blockchain space, or did blockchain get you excited first?
So I just described I was convinced because the blockchain can cut off all the backend. So, and it's I think it's very hard for the 2B business to collect money, but with a smart contract, you can collect money automatically. Yeah, you can cut off all of the backend again. But for my words to define the blockchain, I think that one of the largest challenges here is for blockchain, it was born not from academia. So we don't have that, the exact definition for blockchain. For my words, for definition of blockchain is block with a chain. So it's not means decentralization, means shared ledger. It's just a block with a chain. So yeah, simple. I like everything simple.
Just like the simplicity of what it is. Eric, you've spotted some massive trends over the last 2 decades. Massive trends of where things are going. You may have not knew it was going to be as big as what it was. You have jumped full boat into this. Why do you see this as the next big thing?
All in, as they say. What's interesting about blockchain and crypto is that it changes so many things. So it's not just about technology. It's about governance. It's about finance, and it's all these things that are sort of wrapped into this whole discussion. And you have to consider everything at once in order to solve the problem. So that's what's really interesting. The last time I saw something like this was really, frankly, back in the .com time, when there was a very clever set of people, group of people who invented this thing called the internet, and it was a great set of ideas. And what fascinated me about crypto was that there was also a very clever set of people who invented all these great concepts, and they all seemingly work very well together, and they hang very well together. And so it's possible to imagine some really new worlds.
But the irony is, the first group that you mentioned, the ones that created the internet, they didn't make a lot of money on that. They didn't. Where the first iteration of the crypto group, they've done well. So what are you learning from your past experience of the internet people to those crypto people and applying it to yourself?
Well, I would say that actually there were people who did make a lot of money from the internet, but they were all kind of centralized, folks, right? Centralized corporations and so forth. So what's interesting though is that there were certainly some people on the internet who didn't make money, people who were doing a lot of open source work. And so what's fascinating about blockchain is that now you have an economic model that can incentivize all this work down to kind of micro, level transactions and so forth. And so now you have a way to incentivize people in a community to, make money while developing tools that are available for, everyone in the world.
So let me throw this situation that's going on today, right now. There's a platform called Steam, which is a company called Valve, which is based up in Seattle, and they make games, and inside those games you can buy assets or skins for those games. And what Valve has said is basically they're turning off the exchanges to sell those assets, okay? And one company, OpSkins is an example, they're saying that those skins, those assets, are the individual's asset. Meaning they bought it, they should be able to take it out of the game and exchange it and trade it. And they, of course, are aligning that with the blockchain, saying that this is the authentic, this is not just, the word unique is a little different when we were young. Unique meant one of a kind. Here it means something different, but there's only one of a kind of that skin, and it's on the blockchain. This, I would say, is probably one of the first interesting tests, and that is in the gaming sphere, because what do we see when the internet comes out? We either, new technology is applied to porn or to the gaming industry. And this is for the gaming industry. Yeah. How will this prevail, do you think, when it comes to, let's first go with digital assets and the blockchain, and how painful is it going to be for the incumbents that are out there or the legacy companies? Big question. You want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, so I think you covered a lot of ground, but I think when you look at market-based businesses or successful markets, right? Generally, there's somebody who has been in a position to collect rent because they've brought together buyers and sellers, they've built the network, they've provided some layer of trust, they've provided a mechanism of exchange. And the interesting thing about blockchain is it sort of presents the possibility that you could get at least two of those without some centralized authority, right? And so that may give people comfort in the sense that, you know, people who tend to control markets also tend to try and keep you from leaving them.
Right.
I think the question will be whether you can, in this decentralized way, do the first thing I mentioned, which is bring people together, make the market. But as Eric was saying, one of the cool things about blockchain that we haven't seen with anything else is that you have a way to incentivize people to actually bring the market together, right? And so I think it'll be really fascinating whether, you know, the Steam example ends up being canonical or not, I don't know. But I think you certainly now have the opportunity to have big markets with lots of value exchanged without having somebody in a position to sort of control it.
And Judy, you understand that what the beauty of this is, it's validation that one asset is real and it's one of a kind. And that's what makes it so strong, which basically could challenge the infrastructure of everything. Because now we have that general ledger that says, yes, this is it, there's nothing else. This is the original, and it'll stay that way. This has to excite you.
Oh yeah, but for for the company like Steam, the gaming platform, I think the biggest challenge will be like for blockchain, for typical crypto project, they know how to share profit with the token holders. But for existing platform, why they have the rationale or what is the motivation for them to share with others? This will challenge the whole traditional business go to the crypto world. Yeah.
You understand what we're saying, right, Eric? Where this is going. Could you imagine the Steam platform? I think is kind of a test right now to the Googles and the Apples of the world that also have platforms with assets that are built inside there also. So is the asset the owner of the person that bought it, or is it the owner the actual platform? And blockchain really throws an opportunity in this to allow the authenticity of that asset to be recognized.
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating about blockchain is that it's not just about a technological change. It's about redistributing the economic benefits. Right. So instead of a corporation that maximizes profit, you can imagine a world where there is not necessarily a need to create profit. And in fact,
tell me about that world a little more.
Yeah. So the world, I don't know if there are any real examples of it today yet, but the world is one where lots of people, the token holders of a certain ecosystem, basically benefiting. They're participating in some kind of ecosystem, but they're also benefiting by being holders of that ecosystem. And so you go from this kind of centralized world where profit is attempted to be maximized to a world where you have bits and pieces of value all over the ecosystem that are being held by the token holders themselves, and they not only benefit from the benefits that they have from their own data, from their own participation in a network, but they also benefit economically from that. And that's just really mind-blowing in a way.
So any company that you did something with, you would always do a SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
You sat there and decided where the strengths and weaknesses are, where the problems are.
Right.
We can talk about the strengths all day.
Yeah.
We're here because of the strengths.
Right.
Where do you see the weaknesses?
Well, so I think that if you think about the challenges that people are facing right now, certainly, blockchain needs to be not just slightly better than incumbent solutions, but needs to be radically better, right? And so, if you're going to say, well, gee, I'm going to do a blockchain-like replacement for Visa, which is certainly what a lot of people are talking about, right? I mean, you better be faster than Visa, you better be cheaper than Visa, and you better be able to address all the things that Visa does well, like things like chargebacks, as well as have some unique capabilities, like let's say providing economic incentives around, right? And so I think that a lot of the challenges, one of the biggest weaknesses I see with a lot of blockchain businesses is they get enamored by the cryptocurrency or even by the technology and are not necessarily thinking about what is the value that you're trying to provide.
It sounds like there's a similar situation when it comes to the green space, meaning, you know what, I'm going to buy that T-shirt because it's biodegradable or it's good for the planet, but the problem is it's more expensive. And because it's more expensive, it doesn't really allow the rest of the world to participate in this. What you're saying is it has to be highly competitive.
Right.
It has to be better in every aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we do that with the current infrastructure today?
I believe so. I mean, I believe that there are many, many applications and many, many use cases where being decentralized, first and foremost, can be faster, cheaper, more secure, and provide economic incentives in a way that sort of incumbents don't. So, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about my current company, but we're basically like Airbnb for disk drives.
You can talk about it.
So, or decentralized AWS. So, a traditional AWS, people who have excess, who have things they need to store, or extra computing that they need, right? They go and they do it on machines that are run by AWS. In our case, we basically bring together disk drives from 150,000 individuals around the world in 180 countries, and we find people who have extra data they need to store, and we basically store it on those disk drives. And as you might imagine, we use blockchain and cryptocurrency to make the economics work, but we're providing economic value to the people who are running the disk drives. We're providing economic value to the people who are storing data with us. And
sounds like
because it's distributed.
Wasn't Kim.com trying to do this about 4 years ago with mega upload?
So generally I try not to associate.
I'm just saying, it sounds
I mean, it's not a ridiculous new idea, right? I mean, like I say, it's like Airbnb. You have, Airbnb, you have an extra room and match it up with somebody who needs an extra room. In our case, we match up people who have extra disk drive space with people who need extra.
But it makes sense. It's a real business.
Right, and because it's distributed, it's actually safer. It can be much faster, and it doesn't generally cost the farmers anything, the people who are running the disk drives, anything extra. So there's a lot of economic value. We can make it cheaper, and sort of to one of the points that Eric was making earlier, we have actually found a way to sort of use what we're doing to economically empower open source companies. So open source companies, if you build some great open source database, chances are it's going to be used a lot on public clouds, but you're not going to get any money for that. In our case, we're more than happy to share some of the wealth with people.
Okay. Judy, where do you see the issues, not the upside, but the things that need to be better or somehow changed?
Okay. For all like token projects, I see right now, for like founders, they have like because when you're talking about the blockchain, you have to talk about the token price. So I found lots of young people, just 1 year or 6 months startup has huge pressure on on their token price. Yeah. That is a real practical issue in this area because day one you become a public company. Yeah, in some sense.
I guess I'm misunderstanding it. So you're focusing specifically in the crypto space right now in this conversation.
Yeah.
So let's bring it down more on the blockchain side real quick, okay? Where do you see the issues when it comes to blockchain that needs to be enhanced or made better? Or do you want to focus just on crypto?
So for the blockchain crypto, I think it's very hard to implement the blockchain without the crypto. Yeah. That's my whole point.
You just want to put them together.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I respect that. Where do you see the pitfalls or issues currently right now, Eric?
Well, we're still in actually very early days of blockchain. Despite the hype from last year, these are still very early days in terms of the technology.
And you're saying the hype is because of crypto?
The hype is definitely because of crypto. And it's way ahead of the reality. And for me, I think Ben and Judy made completely valid points. But for me, if you look at the reality of this and the value that it's delivering to the world. We're still very early days. Lots of projects are just launching. They're also talking a lot about the technology, and admittedly, there's a lot of technology problems to be solved. I'd like to see the conversation move a little bit forward and talk about use cases and real-world problems that people who don't really understand crypto, maybe they heard about it, but they don't really understand it, solving pain points for them. And there's not a lot of discussion about that today.
I'm starting to get a bit frustrated on the conversation is just crypto. Because it seems like we're stagnant, and then when Bitcoin doesn't do well or perform well to people's expectations, then people start poo-pooing the idea of what blockchain is because they think it's tied together. And unfortunately, they're very separate. You know, blockchain is the road, and Bitcoin is one of the cars on the road. I mean, it's a very easy way to understand it. But everyone seems to tie it together, and I'm not sure, is that because the language from the techies hasn't been brought down to the masses in an understandable way?
I think the problem is when you look at the slogan of this conference, it's catch the next crypto unicorn. Almost by definition, right? People are here and they're excited about getting rich quick, right? It'd be the same thing as if we were trying to talk about the internet 25 years ago and you talked about, get the next quokka with a stock pop, right? And I think actually both sort of what I think Judy and Eric were getting at is it's actually very disruptive if you're, in a bad way, if you've got a group of people who are trying to build a great business and do great things and they're distracted by dreams of great wealth, right? How do you build a great culture and build a great product if every day people are saying, oh, I'm worth $1 million today. Oh, I'm worth $500,000 today, right? As opposed to saying, well, what can I build that's going to be really valuable?
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's valuable first, because I mean, when you built LinkedIn, that was the whole idea. You're solving a problem, is what you were doing.
Well, I mean, it's sort of human nature to be attracted to money, right? Like, who doesn't want to make money? So there's kind of a natural, attraction to money and crypto, and given the appreciation last year of the major currencies and not also other altcoins, who wouldn't want to talk about that? But the reality is that you need some support for those currencies, some intrinsic value for Bitcoin or Ethereum or something else, EOS, to be worth something. And right now, there is certainly a lot of shall we say speculation about the potential of what these currencies and what they mean in their ecosystems.
So let's skip and talk more about the next round of financing. So, since it is unicorns out there, it was interesting having Andy from Dragon speak, and then Bobby and DJ. They're all like myself. We're old legacy type individuals that did traditional raises, going to a venture capitalist. We would give up so much equity to that VC. We would have to give up a board seat. We would have to do these things on a regular basis. And with the ICOs today, it's a very different type of marketplace in raising money. First, I want to know, all three of you, have you done an ICO, or are you doing an ICO?
So we did a token sale. One of the early ones.
Token sale, okay. And how was that?
Well, at the time it was great, right? I mean, we raised 30 million and we took 10 of it as Bitcoin and Ethereum, so it now became worth a lot more. So we actually now have the advantage of having a lot of non-dilutive capital that we can build a great business. But we are trying very hard not to pay attention to
the price of Bitcoin.
The price of Bitcoin or the price of the token, because we've got a real business to build. And we actually built a business. We built our network before we did the token sale, which I think was important, right? So that everybody understood that really what we are about is about building a great decentralized storage business, not flash in the pan ICO.
Was it a difficult raise?
There are challenges, right? Everybody knows how to do knows how to do a preferred round.
Yes.
Doing an ICO has all sorts of issues, and you need to. I think the thing is, you need to put the discipline on yourself, right? You have to put discipline on yourself about how you're going to use the proceeds, how are you going to control it, how are you going to prevent people who work at your company from trading in the tokens.
This is new for you because you've done traditional raises. Yeah. This is a new form of money in a lot of ways.
It's a new form of money, and like all forms of money, I think it can do great things, but it can also distract people. I mean, so you hear stories of startups where the founders do an ICO before they've even built the product, and the founders take 20% of the proceeds and then they don't show up to work. That's a bad thing. I don't think you need to be an expert to know that. I mean, so we've tried to do it very differently. We're very disciplined. We have a governance committee and all that other sort of stuff. And a lot of the best companies are doing the same thing. And then, what we have tied, though, are, the founders and all people working at the company, right, our incentives are tied to the network actually growing and being used, not to the token. The token is it's great because it's free capital, but it's not.
I get it, but it's still an amazing way. Have you done many ICOs, Judy? Or
It's my daily job.
It's your daily job,
To participate in the
And
pre-sale.
what kind of issues are you seeing on the ICO? First, we've seen ICOs. Are we right now finally peaking? Because at one point in time, it was almost 3 a day. Okay? Are we still at 3 a day, or are we starting to see 2 and maybe 1?
Like there's a current trend that there's no ICO, just pre-sale and go public listing in crypto exchanges. But like the way I see the ICO, I think like though we did a lot of like pre-sale, very successful for like our fund return, but I feel like the job is created for all the VC guys because like in traditional VC industry, we make money from like information arbitrage. But for ICO, from my perspective, it's just an open source service. And it's a kind of open source code. Everyone can look at the code. And the value of the token is like how you judge the code service, right? So everyone can participate a token sale. Or like can buy in public exchanges.
Everyone can, but there has to be a value, a perceived value behind that.
Yeah. But like information access is open to everyone. So I feel like the VC is very hard to make money in terms of like private information.
The VCs are, yes.
Traditional VC. Yeah.
But as the founders of the company, it's a new option for them. And I'm wondering, and I'm not sure. If you've seen anything, have you seen, and we should have talked to Andy about it, I'm wondering if VCs are acting differently now, knowing that there is a new option out there that in theory is competitive to their old fundraising. Have you seen anything, Rick, on that?
We're, as our project, we're just wrapping up a private sale. We've talked to crypto people, we've talked to a lot of the traditional VCs, and there's I would say that traditional VCs are still quite traditional.
Are they?
Yeah.
But are they ultra confident, or are they starting to see that there is a possible crack?
Well, there is a bifurcation. You see some of the, a lot of the younger partners, going and starting their own crypto funds, hedge funds, but maybe more the mainstream investors are still hanging on to the idea that this is just a fad, crypto is just a fad, and where the game still is.
They really believe that?
Is in the equity game. They really believe that. And so you really see kind of these two worlds. Maybe it's in transition from one to the other. But there are certainly advantages to ICOs or token generation events, whatever you call this. And I do believe that this is more of what's going to be the future.
You're doing a
of
traditional
fundraising.
raise.
What's that?
You're doing a traditional raise right now.
Well, we have been doing a private sale.
Okay.
So it's some kind of hybrid, probably more like the crowd sale than more like the traditional raise.
And is there a unique group that gets what you're doing, or can you go out to the masses later on and explain it?
Well, that's a whole another set of topics for today. That's probably worthy of another panel. But as it's very interesting to do any kind of sale of tokens here in the U.S. because of regulatory ambiguities. So we've had to be very mindful of that. But I think that the concept of how you get tokens out there, get the story out there, as Judy was alluding to, is it's very good in my opinion because it sort of equalizes the playing field more and is more ideally a more efficient way of raising capital.
I've noticed that I was looking at statistics where blockchain companies are originating from. I'm not saying where their developers are. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
saying where they're incorporated. I'm saying where they originate from, because that's important. Because if we say it was incorporated, it'd be Singapore or Korea
Yeah.
or China. But it seems like it's China and California are really the two dominant locations. Okay, that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing a very large Asian play on this. What blew my mind was a month and a half ago, I just did a blockchain conference in Dubai for 10,000 people, fairly
10,000.
large.
Yeah, yeah.
Of that 10,000, only 200 were from Asia. That blew my mind because they were from the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. And it's often where we neglect to talk about what's going on in the Middle East and Africa as being an opportunity, especially when it comes to assets and just in the Middle East itself, of that decentralized idea, because it's a very different way of thinking for them. So when we look outside the United States and China, where do you see the opportunities when it comes to anything when it comes to blockchain?
Yeah, well, so I think it's a really insightful thing that you mentioned, right? And if you sort of look at the history of mobile's tended to take off first in places where there wasn't good landline. Right. And my guess is that we're going to see sort of the transactional blockchain things take off where there aren't good alternatives, right? So I used that example of Visa earlier, right? Where you start to see in a lot of sort of developing countries or use of blockchain as a medium of exchange is where there isn't a good, trustworthy, centralized medium of exchange. In the same way where I think like one of the most innovative mobile banking projects you hear about is this thing called M-Pesa in Kenya,
Yeah, Kenya.
where it's like it's all done with text messages because very few people have bank accounts, but everybody has a mobile phone.
And Safaricom ended up buying them because it was such a big deal.
Right, and so I suspect that there's a reason why you're seeing people in Venezuela being excited about blockchain, right? Or you're seeing people in Middle East or Africa, because if there isn't, or in supply chains where there isn't good centralized trust, because that's something that blockchain does really well.
So where do you see it outside the United States, or in China? Where do you two see it? Judy, what are you excited about?
I think the mentality between like China and the Silicon Valley is totally different.
Yeah.
Because like first of all, I think like the beauty of blockchain of the crypto is like the like usual pitch for traditional VC is like I have an existing problem in a market and my technology can solve some of a large like problem, right? But for a traditional, typical like pitch for a crypto project, it's kind of like they use a business innovation to resolve a technology problem. Look at like Bitcoin. It's like a very bad technology because it's like a 51 attack, right? So, but they use a very innovative way. It's a kind of like business model to resolve a technology problem. So the mentality in Silicon Valley is kind of like I want to be like breakthrough in terms of technology, but the mentality of the like China or Asian is always like I want to do like a business model innovation. That's why
the irony
Asian
is,
move
let's
fast.
go what Ben said real quick regarding mobile. What became the dominant player when it came to mobile was Finland. At the early days. It was Nokia that really excelled because they realized that they were going to put everything into that, including the government got very actively involved. And I'm wondering if that would be one of the use cases where we understand in the United States, I don't think any government wants to get involved with blockchain. They talk about it, but they could see it as a dangerous situation. I'm wondering if a country is going to step forward. We see that, I think the Marshall Islands is the only place that's saying, we'll take crypto, but is there any one place, and I'm not sure if you've seen this either, Eric, is there one place that's saying, we're going to take a stand on this, a government or a country? Have you seen anything?
I'm not as well versed on the government side, but just going back to the original point, what's been interesting to me is that this is really a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other countries that are really getting into this and really being at the forefront of the way to use blockchain. Here in the States, I would say we live in a relatively trustworthy world. We mostly trust our government, I guess.
Oh.
But there's a lot of other countries where you can't make that assumption, or you don't have these systems in place. And blockchain is so very much about trust. There's this whole concept of trustless because it's enabled by
Well, you said
blockchain.
use cases you wanted to focus on. What exciting use cases are you aware of? Were you actually starting to see blockchain being at the heart of what's going on?
Well, there's a lot of examples of kind of coordination of value or exchanges of value where you might need an intermediary, and there isn't one that sort of obviously exists, and blockchain can kind of come in and fill that hole. So I haven't seen any kind of specific ones. I suppose CryptoKitties is sort of interesting, at least it has been.
Because that's a game changer, right?
It's a game changer, no pun intended. What's interesting is that you can start to look at these other areas, like China, like Eastern Europe, even South America. It's really happening, everywhere else, kind of. And there's a lot to learn from these other places.
If we talk about tokens, it's interesting. What we did with Wax was our biggest issue on the gaming platform on Opskins was when somebody wanted something in Bitcoin, they wanted to be pay off in Bitcoin. This is going back a year, 7 months ago. It was so expensive on the mining fees to do that, especially when it was a small amount. So by creating our own token, we automatically alleviated that. Now that everything has come down, it's an interesting dilemma right now because of this influx of what's happening. This inconsistency frustrates me. I'm wondering, does it frustrate you, or does this reminisce back in the .com days for you? What do you think?
Well, there certainly is a lot of volatility in crypto. There's a whole class of kind of stable coins that are coming to the fore to try to address this problem. It's hopefully I think it's a symptom of kind of maybe the lack of intrinsic value in a lot of these, or maybe even most of these currencies, at the moment. So until we kind of get some intrinsic value in behind these tokens, it's going to be volatile for a while. So hopefully things will stabilize, and then there's a lot of talk about how you can go from crypto to crypto without going back to fiat, which is where the volatility is, and hopefully things will stabilize.
Have you seen Abra? Are you familiar with Abra, this one app?
Abra, the app,
yeah, Bill Barheit's app where you're able to move between. And it's interesting also to watch what Robinhood has done. And let's see where Robinhood is going to go, because they're going to say you're able to go between crypto and stock and then the fiat. I also think if we want to go crypto, one of our biggest problems are financial planners cannot recommend crypto for portfolios. And I think once that changes, then I would see the common individual saying, yep, I get it now because I have a financial planner explaining it to me. Because there's really no, I would say, common language point for the average consumer yet. A new study came out the other day regarding high net worth individuals, and it showed that almost 50% want to get or are involved in crypto. 50%. That's a great indicator, right? You saw that study also. So at least we see that there is a strata that's getting it. But the irony is crypto was made actually for the bankless, the people that couldn't get banking, and it's the top of the pyramid that's really benefiting from it right now. It's kind of a contradiction. Hey, a couple of seconds left. I just want to know, what crazy token or coin have you bought in the last year that has done extremely well that you didn't think it was going to do as well? Let's go. What did you buy?
I'm not going to be a good answer.
Come on, you bought something.
No, I tend to kind of, again, I'm kind of a all-in long-term believer.
Long term. You didn't buy the Putin coin.
I'm not speculating that much. I have some tokens, but the jury's still out on whether they
You just kind of sat there.
Exactly.
What do you got, Judy? What's crazy?
Ethereum.
Ether's your crazy one.
Yeah.
That's your crazy one.
Yeah, back to like 2 years ago, everyone think like it's the gas of Ethereum, even Vitalik.
I know, but Ether's your crazy one. Yeah, okay. Ben, what do you got?
Cole's Cash.
Cole's
What?
What do you got?
No, actually, I'm sort of in the same camp as Eric. I think with most of these new technology, and you're going to hate me saying this, right? People tend to be way overly optimistic about how fast the change is going to happen or how much money they're going to make in the short term, and they're way underestimate how much money they're going to make and the impact they're going to have in the long run. So I'm a long-term guy.
I get it, but you got to play with some of these tokens.
Yeah, so I play around with the tokens, right?
What do you got? What's your crazy one? Did you get some Tron? Get some Tron this week. Come on, it's 2 cents, I think, or 3 cents.
Tron? No, but honestly, I'm long on Storj, right? And long on Storj doesn't mean investing in the token. It's building a great company behind it, and I would probably do the same thing with Eric's company for the same reason, right? Because I think you're going to build real value in the long run And in the short run, it's volatile, and all
It's
you're
all
really
over.
doing is betting.
I'm day trading. That's all I'm doing.
And you'll probably
Judy,
make money because you're good. I'm not.
Eric, Judy, and Ben. Thanks a lot for
I
being
own
part of this.
pets.com. So.
There you go. Let's give it up for our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Our next.